don't understand that there's such a desperate need for healing emotionally. And so we're being woken up with more and more like illnesses and, you know, mental health things. And because we put so much on the physical body, it's really the only way to wake people up. Okay, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling present. I'm feeling present. My intention with this conversation is to spotlight your work, your story, your heart, you know, your mission, why you're here on the planet, and also to open people up to the truth about these concepts that maybe they've been confused by. You know, etheric medicine, different astral bodies, source, faith, God, all these things. Because, man, there has been some confusion lately. Like, we have been shooken up, Bobbi.
Yep. Upended.
We have been upended. And, you know, there's been this beautiful friendship that you and I have gotten to create. And it was through our mutual friend, Aaron.
Yeah.
And I was telling you before we dropped in, like, I've never had so many conversations with somebody that I haven't physically met yet that felt so real. Like we were actually
so wonderful
in the same space together, even on the phone. And I've been going through quite a bit personally. Like, I'm sitting here, it's October 2020, the year of the mirror, looking at ourselves. What are we owning? What are we not owning?
What are we not owning?
What are we not owning? And I'm so like honored and excited both, like almost like I'm in like a spiritual Disneyland right now. That's what it feels like.
Awesome.
Because I saw some of your work and I've been preparing for this conversation, and I thought to myself, what a great way to start by just welcoming in a breath together, like one deep breath. We did a little bit there, but let's just do one deep breath together, and we can really explore what that feels like. So everybody with us watching, just take a big breath in through your nose, fill your belly, and breathe out all doubt and stress. And I assume that we may have right there just altered or even touched the etheric realm, the etheric body. The etheric medicine that you are so well known for. I think let's start there. Like, we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
The etheric part of medicine. I think typically when people say medicine, it's like, oh, they're pills and, you know, treatments and all these things. But etheric medicine is brand new. We have not talked about etheric medicine. We explored a little bit of the etheric body with the previous guest, but just share with us to start, you know, what's the etheric medicine? What is that?
Well, so like I say, you know, and it came to me in, sometimes I'm doing working in my sleep or doing sessions, and it's kind of cool. So one night it came through, like, how do I, you know, what is this, like, how can I encompass, you know, with maybe a sentence? And as healing is in the medicine that we cannot see, right? Because love is healing. We can't physically see it, right? Forgiveness is healing. Everything, you know, the light is healing, and it's free, and it's necessary for our etheric bodies, you know, and our etheric, we have both. We have our etheric body. Our soul comes in with our etheric body first, and then our physical body is a hologram of it. And I know this, like I've told you, but I'm spirit taught. So I have not read things about this. I mean, afterwards, if I'm guided to, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like there's some actual scientific proof of what I just experienced. And so I actually can see meridians, which is the electrical system of our etheric body.
Are they a specific color, these meridians?
Well, for me, they're like, they came to me when I was working with a acupuncturist. I had asked her to come work on a lymph cancer patient. This is the first time it happened, for me, because I don't look for anything. I just wait to be taught something. And then I say yes to it. So she started needling. I sat down at my client's head, as I do, and I tune in and I just start sending light through, because for me, when I send light through, whatever remains dense or dark is where there's the stagnation, or the wound, the emotional wound, where that got stuck. And there's so much to say. And so I was sending light through, and of course, things were, not moving here. But when she started needling her, I was like, I opened my eyes, because it was startling in that moment, because every time she put a needle in, a blue, like bright, like a blue you've never seen, started lighting up or not. And then I was noticing they were all connected by what looked like a blue straw, like a lighter blue straw. And then the more she needled, there were like smaller blue balls. And then I started getting like a pain, like in my gut or wherever. And I started to understand that that's where they wanted spirit. I say they. So I know I need to explain that better. So spirit, because that's who's teaching me, was starting to say where needles needed to be placed. And I know nothing about, acupuncture at the time. And, like this woman, like one side was lighting, and maybe like I'd see the blue light come up and maybe only go to here on this side, but come up and end like down here on this side. And I told that I was like, I don't know, that one came here, and that one, and she would twist the needle and so adjusting it, it was just this crazy experience. And so that's when I really began to understand, at least, for my work, that the etheric body, there's a space about this much where the etheric and the physical body interact or intersect, or whatever you want to call it, and that the meridians, so the physical body and the etheric body kind of share that electrical system, the electrical system, the etheric.
We can't see the etheric body. It's not something you can see.
No, but they can, with Kirlian photography.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is Kirlian photography?
Well, that's, gosh, what is it? Back in, is it the 70s or, I'm terrible, but there's there's been many, but in this one, it's like in textbooks and stuff where there's a certain camera that they used. And so they photographed a leaf, its whole, the whole leaf, and then they cut it in half and took the physical leaf, and they took the half out of the frame, and they could still see the entire outline of the leaf. That's why people have phantom arm, if they've lost their arm or leg or whatever. It's because you can't cut the etheric body away.
Whoa. So if people have never heard the word etheric, how would you describe it to them simplistically? What is the etheric?
What I know, is that it's a light body, and it takes in every, good, bad, emotional trauma, physical trauma, good stuff, bad stuff. Right now, what we're all taking in from the environment, that everything first, because it extends out here, but it also, as I said, it's hard to explain, but it also comes into the physical. And like, for instance, emotional trauma, this is where illnesses come from. And I know this because this is where I work in here with spirit and the etheric, and I'm taught etheric surgery and all kinds of stuff. But it's like an emotional wound, for instance, it comes in, and nobody understands that that's a fact, right? Like right now, things are coming in, right? So there's an emotional wound that comes in, like from childhood, for instance, as we all have. And it's like it reverberates in, into the vibration, right? Into our light body. and we're not paying attention to what our etheric body needs, because most people don't even know we have one. They think this physical thing is it, you know,
Sure.
and like all, you know, and so that's that emotional wound, and the vibration of that wound is staying right. It comes in and it stays there, right? So, like if you have, you know, people with heart attacks, for instance, so wherever that first it stagnates our energy, and then it creates a level of like anxiety in the background, and which people don't pay attention to either, because we need a calm, you know, electrical system for both our physical and our etheric, but first our etheric. And then it's the stagnation turns to density. And then the density then duplicates into the physical. And that's when people start paying attention, like, what's going on with me, you know, and then they start seeking healing because something's wrong in the physical. And then we'll medicate it, you know, and I have tons of respect for Western medicine. You know, I've said I would love to work, we need to work side by side.
Yeah. Are you complementary to Western? Do you feel like that's...
I think we're complementary to each other.
Yeah.
I think we both need each other because, you know, and I've recently worked with a doctor, and well, a couple of them, but recently in Utah, and that's a whole nother story. But so then people will go have something cut out of their physical body, right? Like cut out, but nobody's paying attention to the fact that it's still in the etheric. And so then it just duplicates again, you know, like recurring cancers and things like that. Like those are, you know, in most cases that I've seen anyway. And, you know, there's a lot going on with children and things, and there's past life stuff, and there's other things. But they don't understand that there's such a desperate need for healing emotionally. And so we're being woken up with more and more like illnesses and, you know, mental health things. And because we put so much on the physical body, it's really the only way to wake people up.
Now, the physical body gives people signals to what's happening in the etheric body or realm, whatever you want to call it. And I'm confused by this too, because even in the podcast we did with my friend Patrick, he talked about the etheric realm, the astral realm, the physical realm. But the etheric realm is not like a bunch of goblins and ghosts. I mean, the etheric realm is something that is literally around our body at all times. It's around all bodies, right? No matter who
all
they
of
are.
Us have one.
Everybody has
our soul
etheric connection.
Yeah.
So does the etheric connection come from a different dimension, from an Akashic record, from source itself? Like, what is the etheric realm connected to?
So, yeah, the quantum field.
Yeah.
Right.
So everything's superposition, right?
Yeah.
Zeros and ones, ones and ones, zeros and zeros. Everything happening at all times.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why, we could talk, about so many things. So it's like, that's why it's like, if people, like what I know in my work for sure, like my sessions with people, 800 sessions or something, right? But I was taught 4 years ago now, right? Like in my own healing process, watching the reincarnation, which is like we come in and we take a body.
Yeah.
Because we're spirit in physical form. Like that's what we are. And so we are light bodies with amnesia. We are spirit in physical form, but we've signed up to have amnesia. So we are incredibly brilliant, high vibrating, highly intelligent beings in this illusion, right? You're down here in this physical body in order to heal and learn. And so all of our emotional wounds, watching, and I'll explain the process of reincarnation because I've seen it over and over and over and over, that's why I know for me, like this, what I know is the more pain and hard experiences people have, that's actually number one, you signed up for all of it, and people, that's hard for some people.
That's hard to swallow.
Really hard.
Yeah. You chose your parents, you chose the situation.
Yeah. And so like, but we choose these wounds when we're in our highest self, when we're with God, non-denominational, and spirit, and we agree, there's guides, our spirit guides want, but sign up to be with us, and we agree to it. We're stoked about it, and we sign up for a life purpose, and we're excited about that. It's a beautiful collaboration with God, So, like the best way to explain it is like I'm adopted, so. I chose one of my wounds, and it's funny because it's like picturing a little like a Red Riding Hood basket or something is sort of what God showed me like 4 years ago. And we was like, think of your wounds as like in a mason jar, like on a shelf or something. So one of the wounds, I chose many, because I'm a badass,
That's an awesome way to describe it.
Oh, it's the truth.
You pick your wounding. Yeah.
Heck yeah. I was like, let's roll, and maybe I didn't do that a few times, who knows why, but I know this time I was ready to roll with it. Right. Yeah. And I really wanted to, because when we heal, our wounds are tools for transcendence. And every time we heal one of them, it's on our own soul's behalf that we choose them. Because every time we heal one of them, our soul transcends. Our vibration changes, which changes the vibration on the planet.
Yeah.
And so I selfishly chose a lot, So, like one of them is abandonment. So, and we are genderless, and it's not, people. I think especially newer seekers tend to think that, or they've gotten the information that like our guides are always like, they have a name, they're some, Buddha or whatever. And that is not at least what I've been shown every single time. And so it's irrelevant who they are. Well, do you know their name? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. But so this soul steps forward. I choose abandonment. I put that in my basket. And this soul steps forward on my behalf, who's not yet my birth mother, and says, in order to be in service to your soul's transcendence, I will come in and create the wound of abandonment on your behalf. And at the time, I'm so grateful, right? Wow, what a service, because that's going to create your own wounding, which then you have the choice to heal, not heal, right? Like, as we all do. That's the coolest thing, is we all have the choice. We have the choice. We have the power. And to keep our words with ourselves as well. And so I'm in such gratitude at the time. And then my guide says, you're not going to be stoked, because remember, when you leave here and you take a physical body, you're going to you're going to have amnesia.
You're going to drink from the river of forgetfulness
and pain,
as described in the Logos. You're going to forget who you are.
Forget who you are.
Yeah.
And we will wake you up when it's time. And, and so then, and it's this really cool thing, because it's kind of like, looks like a graduation ceremony or something. So then we go in front of God, and, non-denominational. I say that a lot because it's important.
It's not a bearded dude in the sky.
No. Yeah. Or a, right. It's none of that. And, it's a beautiful, beautiful, powerfully vulnerable, masculine love that you will to experience is something that is just in the most healing and most incredible thing I've ever, and to get to work on behalf of is like beyond for me. So we go, and we're not handed a piece of paper and told, get down there and like be a basket weaver or whatever.
We choose. This isn't a forced wound.
No, we choose this beautiful life purpose in collaboration. So we agree to it. We're happy. We're excited. And we're like, yay, let's go. For me, I chose all these wounds. I'm ready to rock and, transcend in this lifetime. And then I'm also given, all the tools that I will need on this journey. Not all, not going to unpack them all at once, but what I'm handed a new tool in the middle of sessions sometimes, and I'm like, wow.
Just so people are with us too, because I'm 100% with you.
Yeah.
Where are we at this stage of which you speak, where we choose our wound from the shelf in the jar and we're given the tools? Like, Where are we there? Are we in the etheric field?
I said on the other side.
On the other side of the 3D, of here.
Right.
Yeah.
Where we all reside, God's reside, the angels, everybody. Like that's the loved ones, our loved ones on the other side who've passed, Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful. Like, I will start crying, like talking more about it because it's so incredible. It's non-judgment. There's just nothing but support and pride. Like there's this feeling of pride in us for coming in here and doing this because it's not easy. This isn't to be human's not easy.
No. Yeah, I've even read and heard too that sometimes the angels cry for humans because it's so challenging for us at times. And I can't think of a better way to understand how to use the etheric field and etheric medicine to heal us here in the 3D than to go out into the 4 and 5 and different dimensions. But it does not have to be always through plant medicine. It can be through breath. It can be through someone who's trained like yourself. Share with people like what you actually do with a client, who seeks you out. Because there's so many, like thousands of different healing modalities out there.
Yeah.
Like the etheric medicine that you bring, this special medicine. Who's the kind of person that comes to you and what do you do when they arrive?
Well, first it's interesting because when I, etheric medicine, I didn't choose, because as I said, or you might know, I got kind of connected to my gift via the Akashic records. And then when I started understanding,
I definitely want to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't work in the records anymore. And Linda,
but you know how to access them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not where I work, And so, what happened for me in the records is that for me, it was more of validation for my connection and an understanding, which is why I teach, I try to, I don't like saying teach people, but like help people understand that, all I did and what's necessary to do is to have faith, as we've said, because it all begins with faith, which is a unwavering knowing that we are divinely guided 100% of the time. Not a belief. It's a big difference. You can believe in a lot of things. You can believe in a UFO, but are you going to know they exist until you see one? Like,
Until you're on board.
Yeah. Until you got sucked up.
Yeah.
And they're messing with your hair.
Right.
Anyway, so when I kind of I understood I was no longer working because people started showing up with medical issues. And I was like, kind of like, oh my God, like, am I capable of this?
Like chronic fatigue or autoimmune, stuff like that?
Well, like the first person that showed up, I guess this is a good way to segue, is this young woman. She was like 36, mother of 2. And she had won a private auction at my stepson's school for a free session. And so I don't like to know anything about people, they book and I don't know, I don't look, I don't do anything. And so at the time, this was 4 years ago, so I was still working out of my home. And so she shows up at my house and she was just like, distraught and said, I don't know what else to do. I've been in she has an 11-year-old, well now she's probably 13. At the time she was 11, she said, I have been at level 10 pain every time I urinate for 11 solid years since I had my first child. And I've done every Western medicine modality. I've done pelvic floor work. I've done this, like diet, like everything. And now the specialist is saying that I have to have my bladder removed. And so I came across your thing at, etheric medicine. At the time it might have been called Akashic Medium even, because I didn't even have the name. That's my whole point of the story. So she said, I've never done anything like this, but I'm desperate, And when she showed up and said this, I actually was, because I'm always in communication with spirit and God and my parents on the other side. And I was just like, help me, like, because I know that if she found me, then I can help, because I know that, spirit brings me who it is that they want me to be in service to on their behalf. It's not about me. And so she's at my door. So I was like, okay, help me, show me how I can help. How can I help her? And she laid down, and I just tuned in, and I started asking. They as in spirit started giving me information about the emotional trauma that was connected to the bladder.
Stored in the physical or physical manifestation of the etheric?
Both. It's both.
They feed each other.
Well, so I love that question, because there's a distinction that I recently was like spirit corrected on myself, which is it doesn't go both ways. It goes from the etheric into the physical. The physical does not come back into the etheric.
That's a good note to make then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Really good. So I was like, okay, that's how I'm taught. So I got like scolded, but like,
You're a good student. You're a good student.
Yeah. I am devout. So it was in her etheric, but obviously had made it into her physical. And so this is, and as a side note, this is why, Western medicine and etheric medicine or energy medicine, whatever, people need to work together. Why it would be so beneficial, because when I see density, because I'll see it in the etheric body, and sometimes I don't know, has this made it into the physical or not? And if I could have an x-ray or a CT scan or whatever, because right now I'm the CT scan, and I'd like to know that, but I send people a lot. I was like, you should probably go to the doctor and find out, you know? And so for her, clearly it was in the physical, right? So it was in both, because it had made it, because the trauma was so severe that it had made it into her physical body. And then they started giving me the information about what that was about. And then,
do you physically hear voices, or is it more of like an internal knowing?
It's
because I've heard this a lot, but I've never really gotten a clear answer from anyone.
Well, what's interesting is it's funny, because when I had to get, certified for the Akashic Records, we had to do, which I have a lot of respect for, by the way. In order to be certified, we had to do like 10 sessions with people who had been working in the records for 20 years or so. So it was legit, And the first session I did on one of these pros, right, was she said, do you understand, the clairs, like clairvoyant, clairaudient, clair? And I was like, no, not really, because I'm just like, this is now I understand what I've been doing my whole life.
Yeah.
And now I'm clear that they've been communicating with me like this. I just didn't understand it. And now I'm understanding it. That's why I'm like, let's roll. She said, you're kind of all of the clairs. So it depends on, like, I can feel things in my own body momentarily until I acknowledge it. And because then I'll say, okay, because I don't talk out loud. Sometimes I do, because we're going to do a session after this, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to them, I'm talking to my client, like I'm, getting all the pieces in place and understanding or clarifying things. And so sometimes I can hear, sometimes I can read, they'll throw it up in words. Sometimes, because words are, but words are human. Mm-hmm. We don't use words when we're not in physical form, we vibrate, which is right why we can talk about manifestation and all of that stuff, which is the truth.
And everything is vibration, whether you've studied Tesla's work or not.
Right.
I mean, nothing is completely solid. Everything's porous.
Right.
It's utterly fascinating that we can forget that. So thank you for the reminder, because the vibration of the etheric realm is something that you can attune to. You've trained yourself over the years to really not just be in touch with it, but actually be in communication with it. It's one thing to feel it. It's another thing to talk to it. Yeah. Like, how did you develop that skill?
That I love that, because I was just going to do a video about this, because I get downloads all the time, or communications, and sometimes I forget if I don't do it right away. So it takes, well, my thing is faith, healing, life purpose. It's a path. right? So you can't go from the end of the line straight to life purpose, which we're seeing a lot of people trying to do, which is a whole nother topic.
The crunchy is important.
Yeah.
Where we have to actually bleed and go through the pain. But people tend to not want to share from the middle. They want to share at the end. Or they want to get to the end.
Right. Well, the faith and the healing is important. There's a lot of quick, and we're maybe getting off on another subject, but why I know that the path is important, because faith is the unwavering knowing, as I said, that we have so much support that we have to, if you can't at least like start getting in the like fake it till you make it, even, like just commit to trying it, right? Because when you start saying, okay, guys, your guides, I call my peeps or my guides.
You call them your peeps.
My peeps. I'm rolling deep with my
spiritual
peeps. Yeah. Well, I know I'm rolling deep, right?
Yeah.
I signed up for a lot. I need a lot of help. And now doing the work that I do now, I understand even more now why, everything is the way that it is, because this was always coming, This work was always where I was headed, as long as I kept asking, right? Anyway, so faith, so it's such a private experience for, so like my purpose may look similar, yours, anyone else's, but as an example, like there's clairvoyance, there's mediums, there's, because there's a lot of gifts in this basket that I, showed up with. But we all have the ability to tune in and have a relationship with our guides. That's what we're supposed to be doing. It's available for all of us because we're all spirit, remember, in physical form. Yeah. So what we came here to do is to transcend. And every time we heal, a little bit of the amnesia leaves. And then a little more. And then there in absolute faith, where you're walking in faith, and everything is possible from that place.
I've heard Freud talk about this. I've definitely heard Jung talk about this. Like the more evolved, the more healing someone goes through, the more challenging life seems. It's almost like the more you wake up, the more it feels like you could potentially be Neo in the Matrix. And I don't know if that's 100% true for everyone, but it seems at times in my own path. And the reason I'm asking is because this is still related to you understanding how to work with the etheric realm, not just know it's there. The more I've, I guess, done spiritual development and spiritual growth, the more challenging it has become, right? I feel stronger in some ways. And then when I get something mastered, it'll be like a brand new learning curve. I feel like I'm continually kind of starting over, learning a bunch, feeling good, and then starting over again. Has it been like that for you in communication and learning with this etheric field and this etheric body?
For me, because faith saved my life, literally, which is another story. For me, if I get in my human and I never lose connection to my peeps, but sometimes I can be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? Because, or what am I not paying attention to? Or what, just show me. But I never lose sight of faith. So if it's 5 minutes or the day or an hour or whatever it is, I always come back and be like, all right, I don't know what you have in store, but I'm here for it. Whatever this is about, I know it's in the highest good. Mm-hmm. It's always in the highest good for everyone. And so, but we struggle so much as human beings because we're so in here. And so that's what my work, I know that I'm doing on behalf of, God and humanity is I know because of my own journey getting here and my work with people and the transformations that have happened for people sometimes like that, or but the healing, whether it's physical, emotional, but also like guidance for CEOs, right? Hey, what do you want to know? Let's just ask your people. Mm-hmm. And then and the guides will literally give a list. It's not crazy. It's what's available. It's real.
I've heard people describe this too. A friend and mentor of mine, Paul Check, he said that most people, if they really tuned in and worked on the skill, they could have remote viewing as a possibility. They could understand this connection with the etheric. They could actually be in harmony and union with it. But we live, Bobbi, in this world where it's like, it's so neck up all the time. Like, we are accosted with like financial responsibilities and personal conflict and all these lessons that we've signed up for, right? But at the same time, we can become slaves to it if we're not in faith, if we're not in connection, if we're not in the belief. And let's talk about that. That's a big part of it.
And like I said, what I know is like we're being a slave to an illusion. We're being slave to an illusion. We're spending so much time trying to, control or do this or do that or whatever, and it's like, hey, over here, that's an illusion. Get with your peeps, get in the faith. And I will talk about that until the end of, my time here or whatever, and come back and do it again. But because everything begins with faith, and from that place everything is possible. And if you can get in faith when things are giving you the illusion of like pain or hard or victim's a big one. Like I thought I was, before I was stripped of everything but faith, back 5 years ago, I thought that I was experiencing all the hard things because I was bad, because I had fucked up, because I did.
Why are you being punished?
Yeah, I was being and it was time for me to go home. And that's where I was at, which is another story. But, you had asked, about working in the, or my communication. And so I talk about faith because that is for me where it started. And then when things started clicking, I was like, oh, trust is a two-way street between us and our God and spirit. They trust us to come in here and do this work, right? Like for me on a daily basis, which is why I stand here and pray and I, in gratitude and ask, who can I help and how can I help them? This is not about me. This is a purpose that I agreed to and signed up for. And I'm here doing the work and I'm committed to it. And they trust me to do this kind of work. This is humbling, right? I have to trust them back so that what I had to learn and what's really important for people, especially like all the people who are flooding into the life coach industry, like if you really want to work with integrity and in service to humanity and the people that show up needing your help or counting on you to help, no matter why you got into this, into that business, because now it's not what it looks like is not being in service. It's entrepreneurship.
It's coaches coaching coaches how to coach other coaches to become coaches.
Right. Which is what...
and no one ever actually works with a client. It's insane.
Well, I have a lot of people, coaches coming to me now and this is what I say, like, hey, why ever because you could do this from your mom's basement, right? And I'm not making fun, but like legit, that's where a lot of people are still living with their parents and they're teaching like abundance and stuff when, it's like you watch their mom walk behind them with their laundry. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what the fuck?
But
honey, do you want that sandwich
they're
now?
also doing the best that they can.
For sure. Right? No,
I'm they're probably just trying to eat, right? But like you're saying, there's a sacred responsibility to this work and especially this etheric medicine, which I'll be honest, before you, I'd never even heard of those two words put together.
Me either.
You got shown that. So to bring this around and so people can really feel and understand, there is this component, I think, of confusion that most people have This audience is really smart. Like we really care about these concepts because we know that intelligence is not everything we can just see. Intelligence sometimes is things that we feel. But I think for the grand population, there is just such an incredible pain body around religion and around God and even around this word, faith. Even around the word faith, there's a pain body. We've already explored like a lot of concepts about what the etheric realm is, and we haven't even gotten to your story yet. I wanted to save that because it deserves its own segment. But for people that have confusion around the terms, I'd love to throw these terms out to you. Faith, right? God and spirit. Faith, God, and spirit. What do you sense with all your tools and your awareness that those words actually mean to people? And what are some of the misunderstandings that have caused pain in those words? Faith, God, and really just spirit. Right.
Well, gosh, I mean, I've experienced, or I have so many different kinds of clients, right? So you would ask that, like, I have people with physical illnesses, or, emotional, whatever, or CEOs that need guidance. And older people, I'm getting a lot of older people, which is, I think, incredible. And with the older people, there's a lot of stuff around God, faith, religion, because as I was raised Catholic, but there's a lot of Christians and things that think that the work that I do is dark, and they caution anyone they know to not do it. And I'm like, I'm doing God's work. Like, there's no brighter light, and where there is light, darkness cannot exist, And that's who I work on behalf of. And I've had such incredible conversations with Christian people who have actually like been in tears and so relieved to hear that, God is here for all of us. And as I see, like the supervisor and not, and that, this is just the information I've got, that religion was created to control people using God's name. And he's not stoked about it, and I, because of this work and now knowing and being loved by, and knowing that I'm loved by, and there's so much pride that comes towards me. I don't take offense, but I feel not even sad, but like to think that people are, and my mom was one of them, she's older, but to think that people actually think that you can do anything wrong before God, and that you have to do all these repenting and all this stuff, is like, that is not the God that I know. And that's not, we're here. We made this choice, all of us. It's so, whatever religion you are, you're still spirit and body. And we are overseen by all the same things. And being in connection to source is available to every one of us, regardless of color, religion, anything. And my hope and my work is to lead people to that, help them understand that, because that's where pain will leave us, and loneliness will leave us, and fear can leave us, knowing that even if we are physically alone, we're not alone.
Yeah, you talked about the illusion earlier, which I've had my mind completely rocked in the past 2 months. I think it was perfect preparation for this podcast, where I got to see like, wow, there's actually nothing behind God. God is everything. Time does not apply to God. God is omnipresent in a way that our minds couldn't even comprehend. And I had this moment, I'll share with you, Bobbi, that goes exactly with what you're saying. I was like 12 years old, and I was in the hallway with my grandpa at his home. And he came up to me, he's like, "You going to church, Josh?" And I'm like, "Nah, Grandpa, I don't like church. It doesn't feel very good. And I don't really trust the people." I was smart, by the way, because that that wasn't the kind of experience of God that I wanted. But he goes, Josh, he says something so wise. He was like, there's no concept of a man's mind where he could ever understand that when it comes to God, there's no such thing as beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And we're very neck up. We're very linear in this world. We want to understand there's always a beginning, there's always a middle, there's always an end. It's just not true. It is here in the 3D. But my wounding around God and the way that I looked at God was like, God is to be feared. God is to be like reconciled with and asked forgiveness from all the time. It's just not the case. But that's my wounding. I'm curious right now, 2020, when people say the word God, what do you experience that they might be still hurting from when they even hear the word God?
Well, I mean, the truth is, like, there've been a lot of people hurt in the church by priests and, all these things. That's real.
It's real.
And people don't like talking about that, but it's real. So, people hear God or they were abused by it, like a parent or somebody telling them you're bad, you're going to hell, you're, trying to control and belittle and shame people in the name of God. And it's like, giving God a bad rap when you don't have the right to do that because it's not even the truth. And devoutly religious people, this is for me, and I'm sure going to make a lot of people mad, but it is, I still have to speak my truth, or what I know is, I hear people that are so devout speaking about being completely out of power, that their life is not within their own control, that everything is about doing exactly what God said to do or this or that, and that if they don't, they're bad and they're this and they're not living their purpose. They're not healing the things they signed up. They're not being empowered by how powerful and high vibrating they are because they think they are not their own powerful being that is here for a purpose and to be in service in whatever way that is. Not everyone's meant to be a healer or a, whatever.
Some people are just meant to be a great father, a great mother,
right,
a great principal at a school, whatever.
Yeah.
As long as it's your soul's path.
It's like, and that's what's, and that's something that's, it's a cool thing to think about because as I said earlier, before we come in and get amnesia, we want to keep our word with ourselves. As I said, we want to, when we get to the other side, we want to get there and be like, yes, I did it this time. I lived my purpose. Because we can come in here and not live our purpose for sure. And God's not going to, you don't get like a demerit or smacked on the head or sent to hell for a year or because but you know what I mean? It's about us. Like God supports us and our guys, we get back, they're not like, hey, you fucking loser. You know what I mean? Like you screwed up. No, it's about us. Like we want to experience ourselves keeping our word, right? And like doing it. So if you want to think of this almost as like a super fun game, right? Like how long do you want to, stay around people who are going to zap your light or lower your vibration? Because if you have to get from here to there in a certain amount, and maintain your vibration, your energy and everything, how long are you going to stay around people who aren't going to lift you?
Yeah.
Like be conscious about what you're, that you're here to not just heal, but to like, to love, to be compassion, to live a purpose, to be in service in some way. And that you can carve your own path like we're seeing, and we're on this life coach thing or whatever you want to pick, whatever industry you want to pick. So many people right now, because the life purpose is such a big word right now, like this catchphrase is like, they'll come and do a session and I am so grateful that they are, because it's like, hey, you're really stressing out trying to figure out what your purpose is. Ask, hey, can you lead me to my life purpose and ask your guides. Like, you know, I like to say they're the only people before your guides and God are the only people you signed up in front of it with, right? So that your guides are here on you in your service to you. That's their service.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't take a body this time. They're in service to our journey, and they're holding all of the information for us. Every good experience, bad experience, every wounding, every trauma, everything. Because when we need the information, here. You know, so like with me, I just ask, what do I need? What do they need? What's relevant to this healing? Is it always going back to and reliving childhood traumas? Not every time. It's up to them what's relevant, and then they have the information, and now what do we do about it? And then I'm told. So all we have, back to the life purpose, all we have to do, we don't have to rack our brains and go keep kicking. How about, is this my purpose? Is this my purpose? Is this? Just ask.
Yeah.
Start asking. And you'll be led. That's how I ended up here. I was in real estate for 18 years and a paramedic before that. And then in my 100 lives within this life, I had no idea that I would end up here. It was never a notion for me. It was never, I relied on mediums and healers and everything, and have tons and tons of, I know there's a lot of really great ones. I mean, the ones I've worked with saved my life, you know, and so it's an honor to be here for sure. Did I ever see this coming? No, I got here because I asked, what did I say I was going to do?
Yeah, the building block too was faith. You talked about the wounding a little bit with God and how religion and the church have really used the word of God in an improper way to hurt people.
Yeah.
And then there's this other side of it where it's faith. You know, it's on your hat. It's on your wall.
It's everything.
it's everything.
It's everything.
What's the difference between belief and faith? You know, because that's something where I think most people are like, well, they're kind of the same thing. You know, if I have faith that something will happen, it'll happen. But if I have belief in something will happen, well, then I believe. Like, what's the difference?
Well, that's great because it's the same. I mean, we can use faith and the experience of faith and the experience of God. It's similar. It's like people can believe in God or, you know, believe in faith. Well, I believe in it, you know, but we can believe in anything, but it doesn't become real until we experience it ourselves. And that's why I quickly said, like, the UFOs got, like, Spirit use that funny. They're always using funny analogies. And it's like, yeah, there's tons of documentaries on UFOs, right? Like, there's lots of information on UFOs. We can watch all that. We can take it if we're interested. We can, and then maybe, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of evidence. You know, I suppose I believe in them. And then you're like you hear, you're like, oh, no, well, now I know that they exist. And so my work here is like to get when I hear, well, I believe in God or I believe in faith or I have faith. I'm like, well, what does that mean to you? And there's some canned answer.
It's like learned and regurgitated. Most people's definition of faith is like whatever their parents told them. Yeah,
or whatever's like on Instagram right now or whatever, like, unfortunately. But like I keep going back to is when you know and you commit yourself to be in relationship to your guides and God, non-denominational, because there's no greater support, and you ask, as I did, show me how you communicate with me. Never mind, you know, you or anyone else, because we started talking about that because in the process of before we come in here, because for instance, my purpose is unique to me as yours is. And so because it's unique to me, I need and have my own unique relationship with God, my own communication, my own understanding, because I need to understand that so that I could do what I need to do here. And same with my guides. They're my guides. I need to know, how do you communicate with me so that I can understand and be led and guided. And then you either have faith in that. And like for me, I said, you guys better give me a pretty big sign that you're here, because what's happening is intolerable. So I got a pretty big sign, and you can ask that initially. There's no harm in that. It's like God and our guides have an amazing sense of humor, and when you look at it like that, you ask like, hey, I really want to get on this path, right? I want to know you're here. I need to know you're here. Mm-hmm. And show me how you communicate with me, which I can't even tell someone that in my sessions. I can say, this is the way that you can connect. And then you have to trust it.
I almost feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like faith is the hands and it holds belief. So belief is embodied inside of faith. Belief is something that belief is something that needs a description or a definition.
It's a gateway drug, belief.
But faith is like, it's an inner knowing that doesn't need words to describe that it lives there. Is that close to it?
Yeah, you either know it or you don't,
right.
And it's an interesting thing that came through in session, I don't know, gosh, maybe a year ago now or so. This other really cool thing that Spirit said is like, you cannot straddle the line of faith. You can't have one foot in and one foot out, because I was shown what that does in our brains. And I wanted to say something that you keep saying from the neck up. There's something that keeps coming up when you say that. Because it's easy to, believe or, in faith or have faith when things are awesome, right? And then things start going haywire, as they should and probably always will occasionally. Oh, no, and then we circle the drain. It's like you get on the side of God, or get on the other side. But when we straddle the line, it makes us it invokes even more fear and confusion, which is such an interesting thing. And I've seen that that's the truth with people when they're like, especially seekers or people who've done a lot of work. They get really, really shook up when they're straddling the line. Either do or don't, but in the do is where everything is easier.
It takes fortification, though, to not straddle, because straddling is like the ego wanting certainty that it'll be safe. So as I'm straddling belief and faith, or should I not, like, I think that's part of our human experience too, is to learn what it feels like when we don't have faith, so that when we do actually arrive at this, like the hands of faith, that we know we're home. Like we know we're actually there. Can you unpack a little bit more about how do we actually know when we're in faith rather than we're in belief? Because I think this needs a little more exploration. How do we know?
When you start understanding that you ask and you receive. Like that's not a cliche, right? When we get in that place, and it doesn't take like this big meditative, thing. It's literally, I have the breathing the light exercise, and we'll talk more about that in a second, because that's kind of what's coming up. When the beginning of breathing, they said, let's breathe light into our etheric bodies, because we're light bodies. We need to keep the stagnation rolling. But when you get in that experience of communication and understanding and trust, the two-way street, and you ask, show me, which of these 5 doors I should open, for instance, or if there's a job, or if there's like, a move or something, you have a question, you just ask, hey, and you can set the parameters, even say, okay, well, if, A or B happens, whatever, I'm going to understand that I should like go over here, but can you like throw up a roadblock for me?
Can you ask for a guidepost, essentially?
Yeah.
Please, God, show me a guidepost.
Yeah.
And really be open to whatever it is without an attachment of it having to be a certain way.
And know that whatever unfolds, even if it's not the thing that you were hoping, is in your highest good. That's faith. Even if it's not the thing, even if it's not the person, even if it's not the job, even if it's not the house, whatever it is, when we understand that, because when we're like, and we're like trying to force, a square into a circle or whatever, and we're completely, out of our faith and out, things are hard.
Yeah.
When things are hard and they're really a struggle, then you're out of faith, because sitting back and you just ask and my mom and dad, especially my mom now, is like, they can move mountains for us, and but we have to ask, because spirit cannot intervene. God cannot intervene on our behalf unless we ask. It's a spiritual law. And I know this because that's what they taught me. That, and even when loved ones show up in sessions, from the other side, they don't just bum rush somebody. It's funny, I say, is it okay if your dad's here? Because sometimes people aren't okay. Sometimes the wound is still that deep, or the lack of forgiveness, or, whatever is still that deep. So they wait, and it's by design, because the asking is part of the process of being pulled into faith. If you're not, there's no way. You have to at least have the notion to ask first. That's like the first step. And then when you see it unfold, you're like, oh shit, this is real. I asked and look what happened. Then people can start being like,
yeah.
Yeah.
This is big because I don't consider myself to be a religious person either, but I do have a connection with God that I've never had before. And it happened maybe 2 years ago. It was in a breath work and plant medicine retreat that I was doing, but I was open to the entire dimensions where the dark and the light exist. And we just did a podcast with my mentor, and we talked about Isaiah 45:7. I, the Lord, create the dark and the light. I, the Lord, create good and evil. I, the Lord, create all these things. So we live in this playground, and I've had mediums share with me in session, like, this is the devil's playground. Do you believe that's true? And how do you make sense of Isaiah 45:7 in your work?
I mean, I've not, this is the most, it's funny because my friend Kat, Merritt, she said to me, do you know, you say a lot of things that are from the Bible. And I'm like, what? Because I've never read the Bible. I'm like, why do I need to read the Bible? I'm talking to him,
I have the God internet right here.
Yeah. I mean, so if there's something I need to know, I'm pretty sure I'm going to hear it. It's true. That's my life. And so, so I said, what? And she's like, what you just said is in the Bible, basically, because of your faith, and the Matthew 9:22, which happens to crazy be my wedding date. Daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith has made thee whole. I said, what? She sent it to me, and that it made me start crying, because my dad's on the other side, and I know he's such a powerful force for me, and so the daughter part is that, but also faith has changed everything for me, and then in turn changed things for a lot of other people, because I'm in service in that way. But I don't know the verse that you just said, but what I do know is I don't agree with, it's the devil's playground. I think that's a dangerous thing to even say, because what I know is, as I said, we speak in vibration, right? Just another funny analogy, like whales are not under there yelling at people, right? In the ocean, they're vibrating to communicate. And so when we say things like that, we give it power. And it brings it into the consciousness and the vibrations heard, right? And so if you want it to become that kind of playground, then we can certainly, well, we're kind of looking at that right now. Like, look at this pandemic. The pandemic is a low, dark vibration. And unless we all start healing and stop finger pointing and hating and being racist and lacking compassion and lacking our own inner work and our own connection to source, and like, it's a shit show. And in the shit show, and the things just keep getting worse because it's like the darkness is clinging.
It's being fed.
It's being fed. Yeah. So I can see it's sort of like a low rolling dark fog is how, and I've saw it before it even came, you know. As I said, I did a video before the pandemic even showed up and was like, hey, we're about to all get upended.
We're going to link that in the show notes too, because it was like December, months before COVID had happened, right. And you had a signal, right. You had an awareness that something big, I think you said it was going to upend us.
Upend. Yeah, we're all going to be upended. Yeah, it's on my Instagram. But because I'm always not just in session, but I'm always sort of in communication, and I get this teachings, and this, sometimes, like I said, I'm asleep, and sometimes I wake up and I was like, wow, you know, or I'm doing sessions on people I don't even know. But that came through. I started being like, oh my God, you know, and seeing, like, literally, it's funny, like being, you know, how you can hold somebody by the feet and shake out their pockets. That's the visual that came, as like the upending, because nobody's being self-responsible in their own purpose here, but their own healing. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a body here on the planet, there's healing to do. I don't care who you think you are, how rich you are, how poor you are. If you're here, there's healing to do.
Everyone chose a jar.
Yeah, like, a lot of them. Or one or whatever. Yeah, everyone chose jars. You can't come in. You can't come here without doing that.
No one comes in. Caroline Miss calls it sacred contracts, right? I don't know if you follow her work at all. But it's fascinating, because I was watching her series on Gaia, and she was talking about how everyone has a unique soul contract. Mm-hmm. Now, you described it as everyone has a unique wound that they serve from. And I've heard this from John Wineland as well. A wound is actually a beautiful place to serve from, but not to be victimized from.
Yes.
Right? And so let's make that distinction, because right now it could seem to so many that we are all being victimized if we choose to look at it that way. And I loved how you corrected me on the devil's playground thing, because I'm not open to anything I say ever being 100% right all the time, except for I choose to change my mind when I receive information that feels more true. And I do that all the time. Yeah. So right now, so many people that are feeling victims, can you speak to them? Can you talk to the men and women, the human beings that are feeling victimized? 75 million Americans bankrupt. People starving, people literally, like, I'm 40. I've never seen this much hatred, bigotry, negativity, victimization. Like, it's rampant. Yeah. If you were to just send a message to everyone that feels that way, what would that message be?
That feels racist?
Victimized.
Oh, victimized. I mean, first and foremost, like, you know, when my healing happened, and the moment that I realized after I had, you know, we were going to talk about ayahuasca probably, for me was powerful, because I went into it devout, you know, and I went into for myself, not, you know, I was scared because I didn't ever do anything like that. But for me, and we'll talk more about it, but at the end, after witnessing or re-witnessing all the trauma, because I've had a lot of, you know, not just as an adopted kid, but I had, like, my brother is, you know, one of those dark people, and then a lot of other things. But so I watched all that through the 8 hours of this, you know, ceremony, and at the end I came out. It's a much longer story, but this piece is like, I was like, wow, I'm strong. If that kid, who's me now, went through all those things, and I'm still here, there must be a really good reason for it. What is it? You know? And from that moment, literally, I became so empowered by everything that I had experienced. And now, sitting where I'm sitting, doing the work that I'm doing, I understand even further that I had to experience every one of those traumas and hard things in order to have the level of compassion that I do for every single human being, especially in the for everyone for sure, but the people that come here and do sessions with me, I hear and I re-witness things on their behalf that there's so much shame for, and think that it's going to be the worst thing that has ever happened to anyone, because we all think, oh, I'm this happened to me and it's the worst thing. It's like, there's nothing that I haven't experienced, right? So there's nothing that I don't understand, and it's also another way in which it makes it so easy for spirit to communicate with me, because they can sometimes show me one of those experiences or whatever. But the point is, I know for sure that whatever is going on is not to victimize you, because when you're in victimization, what you're saying is like, hey, see me as powerless. Hey, I'm powerless. I mean, and not intentionally, but that's really what you're saying, because you're giving your powers, like, you chose these things, I promise you, because you know at your highest level self how strong you are, or you wouldn't be experiencing it.
So are you saying that we as a collective chose COVID-19, these 75 million Americans chose bankruptcy?
I think there's not enough people here. Because when not enough people, our collective vibration is this low. So what's happening here is, because there are a lot of there's a lot of gifts coming from people are healing. Yeah. People are spending more time. Yes, there's lots of loss and stuff, but there's so many incredible things happening because people were sat in their shit. And forced to be sitting in their house instead of the coping mechanisms that people have when they're
the porn, the shopping, the food, the weed, the drugs,
addiction,
the alcohol.
Getting that's being out and constantly being busy and like having every second of their day full. Yeah. When that's stripped away, and we're left with ourselves.
That's right.
You either throw in the towel or you start asking. And I think it's brought a lot of people to God and faith, because you don't have, when you're stripped of everything but that, you don't, those are the two choices. You either go down, or you begin to rebuild from that place, and it changes your whole life. So being a victim to these things is not serving us. We're here for so much bigger than that. And because I see everything, right? So it's like being held in, like, living down in the cave of victimization it's holding us from our life and like our purpose here, and from everything, all the beautiful things that are available when we can, it's like, that's what I'm trying to do, is like, hey, let me reach down in that. I'm not going to get in the hole with you, and I'm certainly not going to like, oh, poor you. That is not my work, and it's not always easy to do, because, people in victimization want that sympathy and that, all of that stuff. And of course I have compassion, but then I'm going to say, okay, but let's get out of there now, because you aren't powerless. I don't see powerless. I see strength.
What I heard from you too is, like, for somebody that is feeling like a victim, it's a feeling. It's not a real estate. It's not an address. Like, it's our choice to live there or not. And I got to say, like, you talked about choice earlier too. Yeah. What is it about the human spirit, about faith, about connection to God, that allows people to leave the real estate of being a victim and just experience it as a wind going by. Because we're human beings. I don't want to shame anyone for feeling like a victim. Shit, I felt like a victim before, you know?
Yeah,
so the wind comes by, but what is it about the human spirit, about us, that allows us to not stay in that real estate of victim and move through it quickly? Like, how do we move through that?
Again, you know, I think first, I mean, that's why I have this. It is what it is.
When did you get that?
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah. And because when we break it down, right? Like, you know, okay, so like what's coming through is, you know, I had a man in here, 41 or so years old, not so long ago. And, you know, my air conditioner is a dial out there in the hall and you can hear it clicking. And I was sitting in my chair here and he's sitting and he's talking about for 30 minutes about, he has 3 little kids and a wife and beautiful family, right? And I just can't connect to them. Because I'm just like my dad. My dad was this. My dad was mean. And my stepmom this and this and this and this and this and this and this. Just all the reasons why he can't be present because his dad was so mean, right? At 41. I'm not making fun of it, but, you know. And then all of a sudden I got this sound. I was like, hey, do you hear that ticking? And he's like, yeah. I was like, what? Oh, that's my air conditioner. I'm like, do you know how much time is on it? And he's like, no. I was like, well, what if, I don't either, but what if like that timer was set on how much time you have left here on the planet? Do you want to keep talking about your mean dad or do you want to go home to your family? Because if you want me to sit here, like it's over. And you're sitting here, so you look like you survived it. I mean, right? And it's not being mean, but like that's the reality is you already survived it because you're here. I'm looking at you. Or if you're listening, I did a video about it. It's like if you're listening or watching this video, you made it. What can you do? You can't. There's nothing that can be changed. So why is it that we're so, you know, for many people it's a personality. Mm-hmm. It is an absolute identity. So what would someone be without it? They don't know. Are you willing to trade that in for what? Like, what's on the other side of that? Who am I without it? Well, I don't know. Let's see. You know, it's like, don't you want to know? You know, because that is really, you brought up Elon Musk, and it's funny because that came in a session, which is like, hey, until Elon Musk can get like your dad, for instance, in a time capsule, like Elon Musk creates a time capsule and you can convince your dad, for instance, to get in the time capsule with you as an adult, right? He's an adult, you're an adult, and go back to when you're back in time, and then they can be without their own wounding, which is an impossibility because they also came in with wounds to heal. So their soul transcends. So we can have compassion for them, or we should. Number one, so get them in the time capsule, get them to commit to, you know, sign up to go back in time and then be pain-free, wound-free, and reparent you. Spend all the time doing that or whatever so that you can come back here. And how would that even be different? What would be different? Who knows how long would that take? I don't know. Like you're in the time capsule because here there is time, right? In this illusion, there is time. Yeah. We only have so much time on the clock. So do you want to take a unknown amount of time to do something that doesn't even matter?
What I heard from you is that we get to be parents to ourselves in whatever moment we find ourselves in, because that's what love does. Yeah. Love takes responsibility. Love takes ownership. There is something so syrupy sweet about being a victim, though. And I've felt it in my own life, too, where it's like, God, that's such a comfortable yet uncomfortable place to live. And it's my conscious choice to like stop drinking the nectar of victimhood and go towards something that might scare me, but I think way deep down, I know like that's what life is about. It's about going to the unknown. It's about experiencing the unknown where all the possibility lives, right? So we can make the most of this life. But man, there is a bridge of courage, maybe of faith, that we all have to walk. It's unique to each person. I don't think it's blanket statement. Do you think it's blanket statement?
You can never make a blanket statement. You can't, because we're all so uniquely separate. I mean, each soul is so individual, which is why, as we said, like no one healing is everyone needs a recipe, and who knows what it is. You have to start seeking it, right? So, and seeking the right people. But there's also, if you don't want to take responsibility for yourself, especially as an adult, being a victim gets you a lot of, it could get you financial support. It could get you a parental support as an adult that they couldn't give you. Like you're still waiting for them to give you what you didn't get when you were little. So you're going to like live in their home, or you're going to be
financially tied to them in some way.
Yeah, lack self-sufficiency or whatever it is. I mean, I see so many different things doing this work, and no one intends to do it. We're all doing the best that we can all the time, even if it doesn't look like it to us or to someone else. I know for sure, whatever it looks like out here, that's the best that they can do.
With the level of consciousness they have.
Yeah, or pain, lack of pain or whatever you want to, no one goes out at that. Well, there could be some people, but nobody starts out their day saying, I'm really going to be the biggest dick I can be today.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the worst I can today.
Right.
Just to piss everyone off. Well, guess what? Nobody ultimately gives a shit. Like that's, everyone else is doing their own thing and trying to figure out their own life or level of whatever. But ultimately, yeah, they're even being a victim, and I use this word a lot, but like it is ultimately an illusion set up and designed in order to bring us to the healing that we said we wanted to do. So you see, it's just a mechanism to bring us to the healing that we said we wanted to do. So the pain is actually being in service to us, because without the pain, we wouldn't have the inclination to heal. And then without the healing, there is no tool for transcendence.
I love that definition so much, because many people, we've explored this concept a lot on the show, spiritually bypassing, right? Using esoteric language, using spirituality as a way to actually not feel your shit.
Yeah.
To actually not use pain as your teacher. Like you pick the jar, but you're like not happy with what's in the jar. So you're like, I'm just going to use all this.
I'm going to put that one back.
I'm going to put that jar back. I'm going to like go meditate in an ashram for 10 years and like not actually face my shit. So not from a place of judgment, but just from a place of awareness. In your line of work, in the etheric realm and just etheric medicine, what do you say to people that might be in this stance or the judgment that this is a bypassing tool, right? Just to play like an advocate, like devil's advocate here. Like when people think of etheric medicine or going into these realms that you can't see, it's things that you can only feel. Do you ever have people bring up the fact that like this kind of work is bypassing in some way? Has that ever even been in your
Actually,
space?
that's interesting, because it's the opposite. It's the opposite of, so I'm wondering if I'm not articulating something right, because actually this is the work that people avoid. So there's other things out there right now, and, magnet things and what, swiping and stuff like that. And what I know, and most people who work with me will be like, that was incredible, but like not what I anticipated, not what I saw coming. And it's number one, that's because like, if you think the problem or the wound, if you think you already know what it is and it's still there, then it isn't it. Right. So that's the beautiful thing about spirit, is they actually know what the core thing is, and we just ask and then we get to it. And it's never what people think. Rarely.
Yeah.
And so it's hard sometimes for people, especially if, they just want to hear, oh, everything's amazing and whatever. But it's like, because things will be uncovered on our behalf. But if you don't really want to know what that is and you kind of want to sidestep it, you can't. Oh, you can. You can walk out of here or get off of the Zoom call and not do any of the work. Like, it's absolutely, it is our choice, right? But you'll get the information. That's the thing. And you know, people, one of my clients said, you know, instead of, you know, faith, healing, life, purpose, she's like, your catchphrase should be quit fucking around. And I was like, oh, she's like, well,
that might not market very well.
Yeah, it won't market very well, but you know, it is the opposite. Like, if this is real work. Yeah. And I understand, and at least my teaching and my knowing and the work that I do, at least with the people that are put in my line, because, you know, Spirit puts the people in my line and I just say yes. And so the people in my line, at least, the purpose of the wounds are to bring us to faith, learn self-love via self-care, which leads to self-worth, right? If we love ourselves, it doesn't matter if anyone else, right?
Anything's possible from that
Everything, place. We cannot, that is a step that when we sidestep it, like most of us do, how do we teach anyone else to love us if we don't know how to love ourselves, right? And so, and it changes the vibration of everything. You know, I called in my beautiful partner, soulmate, by being in the vibration of worth and deserving, and, you know, wouldn't settle for less, and then waited and was patient instead of, you know, accepting anything less, because I fell in love with myself. I treated myself like, you know, candles, and like, these are the things, nesting, and like treating myself in the way that I deserve, reparenting myself, whatever you want to, however you want to think about it.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Reparenting.
Yeah. Because you know what? Your parents can't. You're an adult. And if you need your parents to parent you as an adult, there's a problem.
And this is when people come to you, I assume, at that place. Like, quite frankly, like, transparently, like, they're still wounding around my father that brought me to you, right? And I'm 40 years old. So I don't know, my story might be much different than the gentleman who's 41 with the AC clicking.
Yeah, of course.
But like, there's a reason why I've come to this place in my life, you know, after 400 of these interviews and like millions of people that have heard this show. I'm now just asking myself, okay, God, I'm all right. Whatever needs to be healed, I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Like, whatever needs to die, whatever parts of my ego that need to be shed, I'm really okay with it, and I'm at peace. And whatever your guidepost is, I fully surrender and accept to it. And that's the kind of thinking and the kind of energy that brought me to you. Yeah. Through a friend, through another friend, through another friend, because that's how these things happen. Yeah. That's how these things happen, right? So for people that are, if you just resonated with what I said, and with what I just said, if it stuck to your soul, how do people prepare themselves for this type of work with you? Like, where do they need to be from a soul level, from a heart level, to feel drawn to you in this way?
Willing. And yeah, I mean, that is such a great question, because I get so many different people, and I ultimately know that that it is by divine guidance anyway. And so I think I get a lot of people who maybe wouldn't have chosen, if that sounds, that may not have just chosen, but to come, because a lot of people do show up and they're not ready to do the work, right? And that's evident by the next session. Because Spirit will give homework. You know, I have a prescription pad in there, prescription pad that is specific to people in a session. And no, because of this, I had it, Okay, so, but here we are in another session, which you're paying for. You didn't do what you were supposed to do the first time. So you've not invested any more in your own life or your healing than you had done the first time. Because I'm not about just taking people's money or whatever. This isn't about that for me. This is really about, I want people to be in less pain. And I want people to be empowered, and I want people to utilize spirit and God to like blow the doors off of whatever it is they want to blow the doors off of. It could be healing, could be their business, could be their relationship, whatever it is that you want to do. You have to release whatever's in the way. What is that? I don't know. Let's ask. Right? Because obviously you don't know what it is. So let's ask. I don't even know you. So how would I know? But then what the information that comes through is so dead on. But so you could leave a session because the stuff that comes through, there's no excellent, like you either have faith in that, or like if it's too hard to hear, you're like, and then blow it off. Which is why I don't typically do discount sessions anymore, because then people are less likely to do the work.
Yeah.
If there's no value.
What's hitting me too is like there's trust that I have with you because we've had so much connection and conversation, but so many people don't trust right now because let's face it, in this world of spirituality, there is so many charlatans.
Yes.
And so many people that masquerade. And I learned this from my dealings with ayahuasca in Costa Rica. So many people who I could name names and I'm not going to, they are so incredibly fake.
Yeah.
And they are not to be trusted. Yet they have the followers, the money, the backing, all these things that people think they can be trusted. Is there a guidepost or a manual that you could give us? Is there a way that we could actually know how to trust a healer like yourself when we're going out into the field and searching for the healing that we're calling in? How do we learn how to trust people? Is there a guidepost for us there or a checklist?
I mean, I think, with the rampant, healers and out there right now, it's the same, I'm staying on the topic, but it's a great analogy, or it's a great example. Like when I was a real estate agent, right? You had a skill, right? And everything. And then the .com thing, maybe, happened in San Francisco. So I was in Oakland, San Francisco. And when there was all this money out there, these kids that were in the .com buying houses with bowling alleys and everything, you could pretty much, as a realtor, throw a dart in the dark and hit a buyer, right? Or a seller. And the market got flooded with real estate agents. Like, again, and it's not a put down. It's just that there's no experience behind it. These kids that were still had no notion of real estate or the experience of anything, right? And they were getting their license, and then they were coming in, and of course they were making a ton of money because there was money. But then, and also mortgage people were being shady, who lots of them went to jail because of their shadiness. But none of them cared, right? And here I stayed solid and steady working with the people that I work with and whoever. And I never had to advertise or anything because people just were drawn to, the way that I worked or whatever, my authenticity. And when the market changed and the short sales started happening or whatever, those realtors who had no real experience or the intention to have the right intention, like both were missing, right? So they would usually hook up with a shady mortgage person.
Yes.
And they would sell people down the river and people lose their house and they didn't care. It feels, for me, vibrationally, I'm bringing that up because it feels similar to me.
People are the most stressed, the most in need there. And right now, like maybe they were in 2008 during the crash. Right. But on a spiritual level now. On
a spiritual level. So there's short selling, there's foreclosures happening. There's it's the same.
Everybody's a life coach. Everybody's a healer of some kind. It's like, how do we decipher the truth?
And people are in a desperate place right now. And so, I work on it's hard to not be upset by it because I'm concerned about people, right? And I'm concerned because I actually get a lot of them. I get a lot of the people on the other side of, that have tried this, all these other people, and they're even life coaches themselves. And then they're ending up in front of me, which I'm grateful. Like I'm grateful that they land in front of me, because then at least I can take them and be like, hey, if you can only get someone halfway over the bridge in this right now because you're still in the middle of the bridge yourself, then put it down. Like, do some of your own work, connect to source, like get the guidance so that you can guide other people. You can't, because you're going to have two choices. You're going to have to bullshit people, which is happening, or you're going to have to all stand in the middle of the bridge because you don't know how to get them to the other side. So what are you going to do? Because that's the truth, right? And a lot of them are choosing to bullshit people or steal, pull knowledge from other people's podcasts or videos or whatever, enough to sound legit. But when it comes down to it, there's people relying on them, and they're not capable of really being in service because they're being entrepreneurs. They're not being in service, as I mentioned earlier.
So people fall into that trap of believing these, really in a way, false prophets.
Yeah, false prophets who have the good marketing or the great social media skills.
Because it's challenging. Yes. Like, look, I'm a marketer, but I'm a marketer. We produce conscious clickbait, right? So we want you to click, but it's because there's love and consciousness behind it, not because we're trying to scare you. So that's my promise for this conversation as well. But going back to my initial question, like, is there a manual? Is there a field manual of like, okay, if my healer or if my guide acts this way, or maybe I can't look them in the eyes and feel in my body that I can trust them, or besides the obvious, what can you share with the audience about how they can decipher if they can trust a healer?
I think it's important to read people's testimonials, like deep in there. And it's also, if you can read them in a way that, because if a testimony if it sounds too perfect and wordy and like, all the fluffy stuff, but it's really saying nothing, then, pay attention to those things. Pay attention. How do they represent, in their own life? Where are they, especially if it's a life coach, like, how are they living? Ask them, can you help me understand what qualifies you to be coaching me? Love it.
Interview the healer.
Interview them. Yeah, interview them. Like, help me understand, because it's not just about money. It's time. It's vulnerability. Because man, does it take vulnerability to heal? That's probably the main ingredient is vulnerability. And, because we have to let our egos down and our story, right? Because if we're trying to heal the story of our life and the story we're telling is not the truth, then how do we heal? Right? So you got to put down the story. Mm-hmm. And half the time we don't even know what the story is, especially if we've got trauma, because we forgot, so we have double amnesia.
Sure.
It's like, but that's okay. Again, because spirit has all the information. So we ask, but definitely, and ask what qualifies you. What is the success of the people that you have supported or helped? And what brought you to this work? I'm seeing stories, because Pain to Purpose became, one of those click things. I've watched all this from,
what, like a hashtag, you mean? Pain to Purpose?
Like Pain to Purpose, but like people have started like, well, what qualifies me is like, I broke my big toe when I was 2 and it was really traumatizing.
Sure.
That's what qualifies me to do this, or whatever. Like they're kind of taking stories and creating this, their own experience through healing, whatever. Anyway, I'm just noticing that, and some of it is. I'm
clear on that. The interview, looking at the testimonials, also, and I heard this from many different people in my world. Now that I'm on the other side of some things that I'll share down the road, where I was in a place of naivete, and I did trust people when it came to plant medicine specifically, where I can look back now and I really ignored my inner guidance. Mm-hmm. Like when I looked into the shaman's eyes or when I looked into certain people's eyes, that I guess I just really wanted to trust them instead of actually trusting them. And I think I want to put that out to the audience as well, because like the interview process you said is great and reading the testimonials, but also don't you think somewhere in our soul we just know? Don't you think we just know as long as
we're brilliant.
Refine that? That knowing.
Yeah. And and that is the biggest thing is like I could, like, people will because everyone's like learning, oh my God, there's a lot of charlatans, people who are seeking healers or, clairvoyants, whatever. And they're, inundated by the charlatans or whatever. And they'll be like, when we get on a session, they'll be like, I watched that Montel. I saw you on the Montel podcast, and it took me 10 seconds to something just told me that you're real, like your humbleness, your whatever, and they listened, because even in our, most wounded state, again, we're connected. We just have to ask and then trust it. Trust what's coming up. Watch somebody's eyes, watch a video of a healer or a life coach or whatever, and try to like tune in, if you understand what that means, just really from this place, just watch them and listen to the words, and are they saying anything? Are they saying anything?
Or are they saying a lie and it sounds good,
but they're not saying anything?
But you can't feel the embodiment of it. And I'll probably catch some flack for this, but God, the first time I ever heard the medical medium, the celery juice, I was like, something just doesn't feel right. And my girlfriend played me a tape of him claiming that celery juice fixes frozen shoulder and all these wacky claims. And I'm like, man, we really need people like that out there to show us the shadow and to show us the darkness of what we need to watch out for, so that when we do come across somebody we can trust and we can feel the embodiment of their skills and practices within them, we know what's right and what's wrong. Yeah. And I think it just takes time. I don't think anybody can ever 100% avoid learning hard lessons. I learned mine.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
As we cycle down, like, I'd love for you to share maybe one of the lessons, maybe a hard lesson that you've learned when it comes to trusting people in a healing capacity that potentially let you down, and how you recovered from that.
I think that I've always tuned in. I'm trying to, I just went on a different topic, but yes, I think that when I spoke about ayahuasca, I was guided by a psychic, somebody that her name's Amma, that I was working with when I had just recovered from homelessness and stuff. And she said, it's time for you to do ayahuasca. And she's like, do you know what that is? And I was like, no, and I'd never done any hallucinogens or whatever, in my life. To me, that is I could never be that out of control. It was a luxury, right? Because I was the only one that I was going to help, survive or eat or whatever. So, I said, what is it? And she said, well, it's a plant medicine. She explained a bit about it. And I said, well, how do if you're saying it, I'm ready for that. And she said, well, just put the word out to one person. 'Cause I didn't know how to, she's like, 'cause it's not legal, but it's a powerful medicine and you're ready for it. And so, I put the word out, and she said, and then just wait. And so I did that. I chose a person, and then I think it was like 3 months later or something, I get this email, and I knew by the subject line that it was my time and the right group at the time. And I went into it in such a personal way because I had read some about, being the spirit of grandmother. And I really wanted help. I really wanted what I called it like the slippery pig. I had done so much healing And yet here I even came to the place of, being stripped of everything but faith, even though I had done all this work. So that's why I was like, what the fuck, what is going on? And so I went into it like I came into this life, saying the same thing, bring it, whatever it is that I need to heal. But it was truly ceremonial for me. It wasn't, to go trip balls on something that's popular.
Yeah.
I went into it with a reverence for the medicine and to me, for the spirit of grandmother Abuelita. And I asked to be taken down, and I asked to be healed, and I asked to be shown the way out, and towards whatever. And that's what I got, for 8 hours. But I knew that I was held by my peeps and Abuelita. And
for people that don't know, Abuelita is the spirit
of grandmother. Yeah, the medicine is spirit of a Peruvian grandmother. And so I went into it with that intention and with that reverence for, right, the medicine and spirit and the healing. And that's exactly what I experienced. It changed my life. And then I was, I was so grateful and am so grateful because it did change my life. But then it started getting popular, just like this is popular, right? Healing's popular, life coaching. And I noticed a lot of people started just becoming shamans or like cooking the doing all this, and actually a lot of jobless people, and they were just sort of following the medicine around weekend to weekend and living in their cars and just doing all kinds of other drugs while they were doing that. And I'm feeling into that and just like, wow, wait, was that real? Is what I experienced real? Or was that, it started because I used to talk about it a lot, like ayahuasca is, there's such a healing thing.
Yeah.
But you have, just like anything, just like going into a session with me, or going into, whatever, you have to be, you don't have to do anything, but to get the full, from what I understand, get the full benefit of things is like, it must be, to be like devout to your own healing and the tools that are available. But when they're misused and ego driven or, disrespected, which I feel, right? And that's what kind of tripped me up. I was like, oh my God, did I really heal? I mean, was that real? Like I was saying, it kind of screwed with me a little bit. And I do know that like it is powerful because it did change my life and I never went, back. But I think the experience of the misuse of it or being witness to the misuse of it kind of tripped me up a little bit.
Yeah. And just like a hammer, it's a powerful tool, right? Yep. You can build a home. You could also take somebody's life with a hammer.
Yep.
You could kill somebody with a hammer.
Yeah.
So ayahuasca is the same way. Mm-hmm. And I would, in the same way that you beautifully stated how we can trust healers, I would say that it's just as important for us to do the same, if not even greater, delineation process of who we can trust when it comes to shamans, when it comes to plant medicine. Because when people are in the vibration of the medicine, they're more easily adapt to be maneuvered. They're more easily adapt to be taken advantage of at some point. And maybe their soul's calling that in for growth. I'm sure mine did as well. But this path is not, this path of healing, this path of consciousness, like you said, it's not for people that want to stay in the victim zone. It's not for people that want to stay in the story. I feel like we're rewriting a massive new story as a humanity right now in 2020.
Yeah. And another, I know we want to go, but another thing that came up there is because we are in such a different time, this is like, there's a real need, We're healing.
This
clearly.
is it, baby.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
yeah.
You know, this upending, like this, like nothing's gonna clear out of here until we start clearing our own, you know, vibrations and our energy bodies and taking responsibility for ourselves, you know, in every way, which is not being a victim. And, you know, it's like, and all that. There's a lot of, you know, I got a message from Spirit about 4 years ago. A lot went on 4 years ago that, and I think was for now as well, which is even people with gifts, you know, 4 years ago or whatever, or now, they may have truly had the gifts, but if they are not giving back with all that they have been given, then their gifts will begin to diminish. It was such a clear message. And I was like, oh, wow. And I've started kind of paying attention. And because I can sort of see that people that have gotten a lot with their gift and are struggling for, they're shifting their whole thing and they're struggling for relevance. And it feels a little desperate to me. And and we needed something different then than we need now. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a whole new army or legion. I like to say legion, you know, because there's a whole new legion of healers that are heading to the front lines, that are here, you know, that are trying to get there. And we might have to duck out of the way, you know, of the charlatans or whatever, but, you know, I will stay the course because I know, right, that is what I'm signing up to do, and that we'll be standing. We will always, you know, that's how this is going to happen. And as long as we stay true to our work and our purpose and being in service at this level, then everything is going to be okay and go as it's supposed to. But like, be in service to humanity and the person in front of you. If it's one person, if it's a group of people, go into it with that intention.
Yeah. I love that so much. I've heard this before. I might mess it up, but who cares? The purpose of life is to find your like unique gift. Mm-hmm. And then the meaning of life is to give that away. And I feel like that's what I can sense in you. Like, we're going to do another podcast at some point, because your story, I wanted to really make sure that we all felt and understood these concepts, because they're very big concepts. We didn't have a lot of time to go in your story. You have an absolutely incredible story that really forged you in the fire, like galvanized steel that brought you here. So, and that's the reason why I felt so trusted to bring you on the show. And we've had such great conversations. But as parting guidance, you know, with all these concepts we've explored in depth, like the etheric realm and the kind of medicine that you can find there, and even the path that led you up to here and where we are in 2020, we're writing this new story. It's like challenging, but uplifting at the same time. It's just a crazy place.
Exciting.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
How would you define, if you had to define living life well, no matter where we are, what age we are? What's your definition of wellness? How do you define living life well right now with everything that you know?
I think being with self, and if that makes, you know, if being with self first, and then our guides, and being, you know, and truly like getting in faith is a game changer, and you won't know what that means until you're in it, in the fullest way. But I promise it's forever changes your life, because from that place everything eases up, you know, it's easier. And it's also a place from, you know, it gives you compassion and forgiveness. Maybe not in that moment, but much easier, you know, to know that, hey, we're all here in this together, in pain. We're all in pain on some level, some, you know, every level, some level, but to learn, you know, self-love, and just start caring for yourself in a very real way you know, which is, that's what I'm saying. This time right now is a time to come in here. There's so many people living outside of their body, you know, outside of their pain, outside, terrified to come home to this, you know, terrified, like they won't survive it, but you already did. So come home, you know? And that sounds simple, but it's the truth. It's like, it's not just, it is the truth. Like there's nothing to fear. You're already okay. And so the self-love, but also it is very important for like pulling light in and breathing the light. And you said something, you kept saying something about we live here.
Yes, the neck up.
The neck up. And when we pull light in, there's the breathing the light exercise that I talk about. Spirit taught me, 4 years ago in my own healing. We pull light into our energy body, our etheric body. We need it as much as oxygen's for our physical body. Light is for our etheric body. We need both, right? And so first we need to take care of our etheric body to have a well physical body. So start caring for it, right? Like find anybody who can help, you know, if you know, doing the breathing for sure and moving things out. You can take things, I like to, you know, it's like envision taking a mud bath or something, coming out of that. You want to take you could take the toxins and the stagnation and flick it off.
Yes.
You want to do that. And like a lot of people here, but if you can't bring the light past here. Some people with a lot of anxiety and PTSD and stuff, you're right. That energy stops here, which is why there's a feeling of and a sense of being in your head, living in your head, where everything seems real and you have to panic and struggle because there's no flow beyond there. So when we can commit and envision, commit 5 minutes. The video that Spirit, it's 5 minutes. It's like take 5 minutes and throw things off. You could just easily, you don't even need to know what's swirling around in your head. You can just be like, release whatever thoughts don't serve me.
Yes.
And do it. Help me speak my truth. Help me go out in the world today speaking my truth. You know, I love you. You know, Bobbi, I love you. And like send light into your own heart. Pull out pain, you know, fear, grief, whatever it is, you'll feel it. If you tune in to your own body and you really ask to be shown where you're stagnant and where there's density, you'll be able to feel it and sense it and trust it and just toss it off, transmute it for the highest good and bring this is the masculine, earth, sky, masculine, feminine. That's how they taught it to me. And so this is God, masculine energy you bring to your belly button, and then you pull in the feminine earth energy and you release anything, any pain, anything you feel, and you pull it all up. Women, you know, here, and men, like release stagnation here from a lot of people of, you know, sexual abuse, like sexual violence, all those things. That stuff is trapped in your energy, but your etheric body. It is there. If you've not managed it, it's there. Mm-hmm. And you pull it up and you have the feminine meet the masculine here. Whew, they swirl together clockwise. And it's the most powerful way to go into the world every day, into your life.
I love that. We're going to link that in the episode notes for this show.
Powerful.
What's it called again? The actual practice? What do you call it?
I call it breathing the light.
Great. And we go deep into the breath for wellness for us. It's been a 3-year journey for me with breath, going to Thailand and doing long trainings there and a training in Sedona. So like this recirculation, I loved how in this conversation, one of the things I appreciate about you so much is your ability to take these huge concepts. I mean, we're talking about things that would take probably 20 to 40 hours to really describe. That word stagnation that you mentioned on the show a few times, I mean, that's what gets to be circulated. And I think that the more we focus on doing our breathing properly, connecting with God, and understanding that like we're here because we chose the jar, you know, and putting all these concepts together, that's going to bring us closer to the peace and the love and really the transformation that we deserve and that what we're working on.
Yeah, so what we're here for.
I just want to thank you from my heart to yours.
Thank you.
I'm kind of nervous for our session coming up. I'm not going to lie, but I'll give everyone a report about what I experienced. And like, look, I'm here with an open heart. Like, I really mean this. Like, whatever spirit wants for me. If we want to burn everything to the ground and rebuild it, cool. If you want me to take what I'm doing now and do it more, that's cool too. And I think like, coming to this life with curiosity, which you'd mentioned in many different ways, is something that I appreciate about you. So thank you, Bobbi, for coming on the show. It's ethericmedicine.com is the website. You do sessions across the world. If somebody is feeling, I mean, I don't even know how much time has gone by. That's how much of a bubble I've been in with you here. I think we've been going for a couple hours, but if you're still with us and you're here and you're feeling what Bobbi is expressing, have the courage to reach out.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
There's nothing holding you back from exploring something that your soul is guiding you towards anyways. So people can book with you on your website. Also, what's your IG? Do you put out content online as well?
Yeah, at Etheric Bobbi
Etheric
on
Bobbi.
Instagram. And then I have YouTube is you can find it Bobbi Vogel or Etheric Medicine comes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bobbi.
Facebook.
Thanks for coming on Wellness Force. And until Bobbi and I see you again soon, we're both wishing you love and wellness.
Bye.